Hi everyone. I am here with another story. A true story. Maybe a few, I'm not sure. Might be a few in this one or might be one. Some of them have several mixed together. Some are just a long one. Where miracles happen, true stories of heavenly encounters. This one is Rescues on the Road. I'm not sure if it'll be several together or just one long one. This has an Irish blessing saying before the story. May the road risen up to meet you, may the wind be always at your back, and may God hold you in the palm of his hand. If you would like to go and light a candle and leave a comment for me and my family, for my stepmom, she passed away February 18th, you can go to www.wherefh.com. That's the funeral home. www.wherefh.com. That's WAREFH.com. If you would like to, it'd be appreciated. Okay, so Rescues on the Road. These are true stories that happen to people. I love stories like this. So some of them are so similar, the stuff that's happened in my own life. Miracles happen frequently as we drive. Yes, they do. It's probably because angels must go where people go in order to watch over us, and many of us are on the road. Barbara Brownell still marvels at the memory of visiting her pregnant daughter-in-law in Palmer, Alaska. Marcy was due any minute and could not edge herself behind her van's steering wheel, so Barbara, although nervous about the unfamiliar terrain, volunteered to drive them on a shopping trip. The road was winding with dense forest right up to the pavement. They passed a sign, "Caution, narrow bridge ahead." What if a car is coming from the other direction? Barbara worried silently. There would be no place for either vehicle to pull off. Zipping around the curve, Barbara found herself almost up on the bridge. With her fear confirmed, she heard Marcy gasp. A semi-truck was speeding toward them. They would meet in the middle of the bridge, but even two compact cars wouldn't have enough room to pass. Barbara thought of Marcy, the new baby, the trauma for her son. She closed her eyes tightly. "Please, God, not now," she whispered, then aimed straight ahead. A few seconds passed. Barbara opened her eyes. They had crossed safely and were on the other side of the bridge. Neither could see the truck anywhere. When I was 19, I was in the U.S. Air Force and stationed at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, says Laura S. of Lewistown, Montana. I wanted desperately to go home for Christmas to Missoula, about 300 miles away over a mountain pass. Laura had no vacation time coming, but she asked for some and was granted 4 days. "Not a minute more," the flight sergeant warned her. "If you're late, you'll be considered AWOL." Laura understood. Although the trip was difficult, mostly due to the bitter cold, she arrived safely in Missoula and had a wonderful Christmas with her family and friends. The day she was to depart, however, a huge snowstorm was heading their way. "Laura, you can't leave now. You'll be stranded on the road." Laura's mother was panicking. "Mom, I have to go. If I don't, I'll end up AWOL and in jail." Laura didn't want to leave either, but she had no choice. She waved bravely to her mother and set out, but by the time she was approaching the top of the pass, it was snowing so hard that she could no longer see the road. Somehow she arrived safely in Lincoln, a small town, took a break and phoned her mother to reassure her. But when Laura got back on the road, there was nothing to feel hopeful about. I could barely see anything, and visibility was possibly about 5 feet in front of me, she says. I drove slowly, concentrating on the guardrail. I had driven about 2 miles when I saw a sign, 77 miles to Missoula. No. When she'd gotten back in her car after making the phone call, she had somehow turned around. Now she was driving back the way she had come. Frightened, she pulled her car into a snow-filled turnaround and attempted to change directions. The wheels spun, going neither backward nor forward. Her heart sinking, Laura realized that she was hopelessly stuck on the side of a mountain. Panic swept over her. It was dark, with at least a foot of thick snow on the highway, perhaps 20 degrees below zero, and the nearest town 2 miles away. She could die here, but Laura knew that although she was no longer in control, someone else was. God, I know I don't deserve it. I should never have done this, but please help me. Tears began to gather as she prayed, and then just a moment later, without any warning, she felt a push on her rear bumper and then another. A car was behind her, but she could barely see its outline. How could it have seen her? Laura's car kept moving as she tried to decide what to do. Get out and run in case the car's occupant was up to no good, or roll down the window and wave her thanks. Then suddenly, as fast as it had happened, the vehicle behind her was gone. Laura sat there stunned. She was now on the highway, turned in the right direction, and there were no taillights going down the road to prove there had been assistance. Nothing at all but the darkness. A strange sensation came over Laura. She was filled with a trembling form of thankfulness, no less awesome, as she safely drove the next 12 hours on a trip that should have taken 5. Following a semi very closely, and the adventure wasn't over yet. When I arrived at the base, my car's gas tank measured way below empty, Laura says. Never before and never since had she been able to drive that distance on the same amount of fuel. I have always known in my heart I was saved by angels. It's the only reason I am alive today to tell this story. Maureen M. left a party later that she had intended with a passenger to take home. It was a miserable night, dark and drizzly, with fog rolling in, she says. She let off her companion about 2:30 a.m., with 10 miles still ahead of her. But by now the fog had thickened, and she could hardly see. Oh, that's awful to drive in fog like that. The route was all wooded, with streams along the road and many narrow turns. Maureen recalls, visibility was so poor that I tried holding my car door open, looking down at the road's white line as a marker. That would be horrible. What should she do? There were few, if any, houses along the route. Besides, would she ring a stranger's doorbell at this late hour? Going back to her friend's house would be just as risky as driving on her own. Would she be safe or warm enough if she parked? She kept driving, but the haze thickened. Suddenly the radio stopped. With a sinking heart, Maureen realized that her battery must be dying. The car lights flickered, dimmed, then just went out. Maureen often prays when she drives, but this time she pleaded. Holy Spirit, this one is for you, she murmured. I can't see anything at all. You'll have to drive this car for me. Miles passed. Maureen continued to drive slowly. Although she had no lights, she clung to the steering wheel as if it was a lifeline, and occasionally, for no apparent reason, she turned right or left, somehow staying on the pavement. Nothing passed her, and she could see no outline of the road, no tree shapes or road signs. Fog enfolded the car to within an inch in all directions. It was like driving in gravy cotton candy. Would this terrible journey ever end? Finally, the engine coughed, chugged, and slowed. The battery must be almost dead now. God, take care of me. The car rolled to a gentle final stop. At least it hadn't careened down an embankment. But where was she? Hesitantly, Maureen opened the door and got out, shuffling alongside the car, her hands out in front of her to brace a fall. Wait. There was a shape just ahead, about a foot from the car's front bumper. It looked like the outline of a building. Maureen went a step or two farther. Right up to it, she looked again, then got on her knees in tearful gratitude. She was in her driveway. Tell me that wasn't a miracle. See, this is a bunch of different stories. I like when they do that. That wasn't the only miracle in Maureen's life. Her father, Hugh, had his own story. When Hugh bought his pickup truck, he put a little cross in the glove compartment as a bit of added travel protection. Then he closed the compartment and promptly forgot about it. One day, when Hugh was driving through a large city on a congested highway, a driver lost control of his car and slammed into Hugh's truck. Witnesses told Hugh later that he was thrown through the open passenger side window on impact. The pickup flipped over and over again, landing on its roof and narrowly missing other cars. Hugh was temporarily unconscious, but he soon awakened and, unaware of the seriousness of the crash, got to his feet. People ran toward him. Lie down, they shouted. You must be hurt. Not at all. Hugh felt just fine, but he looked at his upside-down pickup some yards away in wonder. How had he survived without injuries? His head was clearing, and as the sound of an emergency vehicle drew near, Hugh realized there was something in his right hand. He looked down. He was holding his little cross. Michelle Malik celebrated a Chicago's Bear victory one night by taking drugs and overdosing. I awakened on my hallway floor, having trouble breathing, she says. Michelle was scared. God, please help me, she prayed. She got to her car, sat behind the wheel, but doesn't recall starting the car or opening the garage door. There seemed to be a bright light shining in front of her. Then she awakened in little company of Mary's Hospital, emergency room surrounded by medical personnel. Everyone's face was blurry except one man's. He was about 30, very calm and kind, she says. He spoke gently to me, as if he loved me, and I felt peaceful. Michelle fell asleep again. On Michelle's third day as a patient, a man poked his head into her room. Just stopped by to see how you were doing, he said. Do I know you? Michelle asked. I'm the security guard in the emergency room, the man told her. I was on duty the night you came in. I don't remember that, Michelle admitted. How did I get here? Do you see who brought me? The guard hesitated. No one brought you, he said finally, but... I saw your car come into the parking lot, the guard explained, slowly. You were slumped over the wheel, unconscious. When the car pulled up, I opened your door. Nobody was inside but you. But that was impossible. How could she have driven a 3-mile journey over snowy streets while unconscious and not have crashed? A few weeks later, Michelle went to the hospital for a checkup. That young doctor in the emergency room, she asked, who was he? There was no young doctor there, her physician answered. Just my partner and me, and we were busy because your heart stopped on the examining table. It did? You're a lucky young woman, he went on. Someone must be looking out for you. Michelle thought of her brush with death, the man with the warm eyes and the loving smile. Someone is, she said. An angel. She's seen an angel. And I hope you guys, that was all of the rescues on the road. I hope you guys enjoyed those. And I hope you guys have a great night. Good night, guys.